welcome back to another episode of ReaperCast. Today we're going to be doing a ranking or a tier list video for Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal Duelists. Basically this is every single duelist, or at least every single significant duelist within Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal. As you guys could already see, the list is actually very small because we have a total here of only 38 duelists. Yes, that's only 38, which is a lot less than what was usually done, because in the past we had like up to 50 to maybe even 60 or 70 different duelists, which was a crazy amount. But of course a majority of them were actually fodder, and you also have to keep in mind that a lot of the past series were actually much longer as well. Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal was considered one of the most shorter series out there, where they only had about 140 or so episodes, as opposed to the previous series where they had significantly longer episodes. And not to mention, in Zexal they actually focused so much on Yuma most of the time, and a lot of their duels were actually 2 or 3 parters, so it would take place within 2 or 3 episodes, taking up a lot of the time, and as a result most of the duels were actually given to Yuma in that particular case, so we didn't actually get to see a lot of other duelists show their stuff. As a result, we only have 38 duelists to work with. To be honest, that's kind of a lifesaver, because that is a lot less to work with, so that is fantastic. Hopefully this video turns out not as long as the previous ones. I'm pretty sure it will be much shorter, because a lot of these characters here aren't as significant as you might see. But with that being said, with these 38 duelists, we also have the different tiers. So I want you guys to take a quick look here. Of course, we have to have the triple S tier. We have to have the double S tier as well, because we do have crazy duelists in this particular list here. And of course, we have S being the really good tier already, and then we have A, B, C, D, E, and F, of course, being F the worst one of all. But without further ado, you know what, let's just get started. Right off the bat, I want to move aside a lot of the fodder, and that would be quite fantastic. So to begin, I'm going to start off with this guy here. He's basically one of the cowboy guys who started off playing, I think it was a gambling deck or somewhat, and it just wasn't good. I mean, if you're playing a deck relying on luck, good luck winning. Like seriously, F tier for him. Second, we have over here this guy. He was actually better, at least, because he was also partially controlled by a numbers, but at the same time, if you're the one being controlled by the numbers monster, you're not particularly great. So I'm going to give him an E tier for the fact that, again, he was a fodder character, and he was playing with his brother as well in a tag duel against Yuma and Shark in that case, so this was very early on. So he essentially had these two brothers together. I put them both in E tier because it's appropriate for them to actually be so. Moving on here, we have this guy. He's basically a representation of everyone who actually participated in the World Duel Carnival. So I didn't really want to put every single character in the World Duel Carnival, because it was kind of pointless. It was the really first arc, it was the first tournament arc, and you had a lot of fodder in there, and honestly these guys were just awful. I mean, they're honestly worse than the numbers people over here who are actually being controlled. Like, I genuinely think they might actually lose in that particular case, because the guys who are actually controlled by the numbers, they might actually be stronger, since the numbers are actually the one fighting. Following that, we do have a few other people who are actually being controlled by the numbers monsters, who I actually think are weaker than the World Duel Carnival duelists as well. So I'm just going to throw them all over here, just because they're a bunch of fodder people and they just didn't know how to duel at all. Now we move on to a little bit more of the more significant people, I guess. So we have this guy here. He was basically one of the main characters as well, but in this case, for him to actually take on a numbers duelist, it's interesting, because the people who are actually possessed by the numbers, they're actually quite decent as well. So if anything, to put him over here, I mean, I might bump up these guys up, alright? Like these two guys who are actually controlled by the numbers and the World Duel Carnival duelists, I'll bump them up to D. But This guy over here, who was just added on as I'm moving over here, he joined the crew. He wasn't particularly strong, and same thing for the rest of the crew members as well. They can actually duel, but they weren't particularly amazing, and that's the same thing with Kotori as well. Kotori, actually, I'm putting her in F because she can't duel whatsoever. She was terrible, and yeah, it's just not much going on there. But of course, we do also have this guy as well. He was kind of like one of the famous guys who was more of like, if anything, similar to an entertainment duelist like in Arc 5, but again, he didn't really show anything. He wasn't particularly strong in any way, and I can't put him above anything higher than E tier. And same thing for Kathy. She would have actually had a bit more skill, so I might actually bump her up to D tier, and I think that's actually quite a fair rank to actually give her. Now moving on, we are actually starting to get to a bit more of the stronger duelists here. Now we do have this guy here, Tetsu, or in the dub his name is Bronk. He's not particularly the strongest, but he does know what he's doing, and you also have to give him credit for the fact that he did technically manage to beat Yuma, because if Yuma didn't have the numbers monsters, then Tetsu would actually just win in this case. So for quite a few episodes in the early parts of it, in season 1, he was actually capable of beating Yuma, so I'm going to give him a C tier. But to be honest, beating Yuma in season 1 was not a particularly great feat to begin with anyway, because of the fact that Yuma was just absolutely awful at the very beginning. So at best, I'm giving him a C tier, because later on when we see a lot of the other duelists to follow up, they are just way stronger. Now moving on here, we also have Roku. Giving him a B tier might be a bit too much. I might adjust it later, but I'm going to give him a C tier. Same thing for his disciple. They were both in season 1, so they obviously couldn't keep up. They did appear again later on down the line when they were actually taking on Mihail, and both of them ended up losing, so they couldn't even compete. Of course, they were taking on a Barian Emperor, so you have to keep in mind that that is definitely quite a feat. I wouldn't necessarily degrade their skill level just because of that. But of course, we move on now to a few more stronger duelists, and this is something where it's like, okay, this is a bit more on the scary side of things, you know? So next we have Anna. Anna deserves at least B tier. I think she's good, but she doesn't have any particular kind of special mystical power actually helping her, so she is quite literally one of the better duelists out there, but with actual pure skill, you know, without actually having the help of some kind of mystical ancient power. So I think B tier is quite appropriate for her. She would lose to a lot of the fewer duelists we're actually getting into. We also have number 96. He's also very scary as well. I want to give him A, but I might actually give him B tier. He might be on the cusp of actually going to A tier, but I don't think so. I think number 96 gets B tier. Like, he would be close to A tier, but giving him A tier might be a bit too much, so I'm going to keep him in B tier. He was still beaten quite a bit of times. We have Mr. Heartland. Mr. Heartland is more of a B tier duelist as well. He was kind of fodder, but you don't want to discredit his abilities. He's actually quite scary as well, so I'm going to keep him in B tier for now. A bit of an A tier list. We're going to give Gosh, and we're also going to give Troy, both in A tier. I think they're both, again, the epitome of a duelist who doesn't have any ancient powers, and I think they both deserve the placing at A. And not to mention, they can actually control their numbers monsters, which is definitely a big deal. So A tier for them. Moving on now, we have a lot more of the scarier duelists. Well, not just yet. Let me just finish off here with Orbital 7. Orbital 7 was more so, well, Orbital 7, honestly, I'm giving him a C. He's an AI, but would he be that good to be in A tier? I don't know. I mean, it could go to C tier or B tier, either or, but I'm going to be a little bit harsh here and put him in C tier. would he beat Anna? I feel like Anna has the ability to actually surpass an AI. I do actually think that, but then again, it also makes me think if Orbital 7 is working with Kaito, and Kaito is a really strict person, he might actually have to be at least a minimum B tier, right? It's not worth debating that long about Orbital 7's skill level, but I think as an AI, at least in the Zexal world, you have to be at least B tier, right? Like, surely. But moving on here, we have, let's see here, who do I actually want to put on now? Well, let's actually talk about Rio. Rio is actually really good. I'm also going to give her an A tier, but she is just below Gorsh and Droy, for the reason that, to be honest, it's actually quite hard because she's not particularly strong early on, but she does become stronger once she actually unleashes her Baryon Emperor power. But with that being said, I wouldn't put her in any tier higher than A, so unfortunately she stays in A tier for now. She doesn't really have anything else going for her. We have the three brothers, of course. We have 3, 4 and 5. Now I do genuinely believe that it's in the order of strength, so 3 is the weakest, 4 is stronger, and 5 is obviously the strongest. And you could even see this by the actual duels as well and performances. I'm gonna give 3 a position in A tier. It's arguable to see whether or not he's stronger than Droy or Gorsh, but it could switch either way. I don't think he's stronger than Rio, because when Rio actually unlocks the Baryon Emperor ability, or becomes her Baryon Emperor self, she is definitely very strong, so credits to her. But I will actually give 4 an S tier here, because 4 is actually one of my most favorite characters. He played Gimmick Puppets, really awesome. The only reason he lost during the Baryon Emperor arc is because of the fact that he was taking on literally the strongest duelist. He was taking on Shark of all people, so really he deserves an S tier. If anything, I might even give him a, no, I think S tier is fine. He's very strong and he deserves that spot. I think had he taken on any of the other Baryon Emperors, he might actually win. Like, I think aside from Shark, Mihail, and maybe Alito or Vector, he would probably be able to handle the other ones. I do think Shark is strong, so I'm gonna give Shark at least an S tier. It's respectable and it's something I think he deserves. Same thing applies for 5 as well. I think 5 is definitely stronger than 4, but I do think that 5 doesn't necessarily make it into double S tier. I think 5 is gifted, he's definitely on another level, but it's just not enough to get him to double S tier at least. So yeah, we'll just stick it with that for the time being. But moving on, we also have over here, who else do I want to actually talk about? Well, let's talk about I forgot this guy's name, but he was basically a Baryon Emperor who played the Raccoon deck. He was probably one of the weaker ones, so I'm actually going to also put him in the same tier as Rio, though I think he might be, I don't know, I mean it could switch either or. Like, he could be stronger than Rio, he could be weaker, either or. I think that's a good place for him to actually put. As for Alito, I believe he might actually be in an S tier, because he is genuinely strong. He was playing Battling Boxes, and I would put him around the same tier as 4 or 5. He might be stronger, he might be weaker, but I would like to actually stick them around that same place. Moving on here, we have Durbay. Durbay is Shark's most loyal servant, I guess, and he was also a Baryon Emperor. I do think he's stronger than Rio, but he's not necessarily the strongest out there. S tier might even be a bit too generous, because think about this, Vector was able to beat both Rio and Durbay together. You know, like Durbay and Rio both actually teamed up and took on Vector, and Vector still was able to beat them. So I don't know, is it even worth putting him in S tier? Would it be too nice? We'll see. I mean, if it gets too clogged up, we'll figure that out. But let's move on and talk about Mihail. Mihail, again, he's much stronger. He actually managed to beat Kaito, so I'm instantly putting him in double S tier. I think he deserves that place. He's just really strong. Like, Mihail is absolutely crazy strong, and yeah, I think he deserves that place. You know, honestly, he might be about the third strongest after Shark and Vector. Like, I think that's a good place for him. Like, there's really nothing else to say. But that also brings me to the point where I actually want to talk about Kaito as well. Kaito was really strong. I mean, even after the World Duel Carnival, where Yuma actually finally was able to unlock the Zexal, for some reason, Yuma still lost to Kaito in one of their duels, and this was at the end of Season 1, where Yuma had actually got quite a power boost already, but Kaito was still there, so he was always that strong rival that Yuma had to catch up to. So because of that, I think he deserves a double S tier as well, and I want to give him more credit because he is definitely strong, but eventually Yuma and Shark both surpassed Kaito. With Shark was actually losing to, well, Shark actually did lose to Kaito in Season 1, but later on it's pretty much implied that as soon as Shark actually unleashed his Baryon Emperor ability, he was just on another level. So seeing that, I do believe that Shark just can't compete. Well, I mean, not Shark, sorry. Kaito just can't compete against Shark or Yuma. And because of that, he gets a double S tier. And I do think that's already very generous. But either way, I mean, if you're an S tier, you already kind of deserve that respect. You know, so it's great. Next tier, we have Elephas. Elephas is a very interesting one. He was the Astral Guardian. And while he did lose to Yuma, he didn't fully go all out, so I do believe that he might be a bit stronger than what most people might think, but I don't know. I mean, should I put him in double S? It might be a bit too much. I'm gonna put him in S tier, like at the very top of S tier, but to give him more credit than that, I don't think there's any reason to, because there wasn't enough to showcase his ability. He definitely did give Yuma a hard time, but either way, I think putting him in S tier is quite alright. Let's move on to Dr. Faker. He was pretty much one of the bosses. It took Yuma, Kaito, and Shark to actually take him on, given Yuma, Shark, and Kaito were all Season 1 level, so they clearly weren't the strongest out there. And yeah, I'm thinking, well, it wasn't really Season 1, it was more so like Season 3 at that point, but you get what I mean. Like, it was the World Duel Carnival, and Dr. Faker was the first major villain out there, so I think Dr. Faker does deserve a double S tier, but I think by the time we get later on, I think Kaito and Mihail would actually be stronger than Dr. Faker. Though Dr. Faker was scary for the fact that he was, keep in mind, controlled by Don 1000. So I would not underestimate Dr. Faker at that level. But with that being said, we also have Tron. Tron is actually, I believe, to be weaker than Dr. Faker, when Dr. Faker was actually controlled by Don 1000. So Tron, at best, he is stronger than his children, but I'm gonna give him an S tier at best. Though keep in mind, Tron is one of my most favorite characters as well. He's definitely really awesome, but I think that tier is fine. We have Vector. Vector was able to manipulate both a lot of people, really, and that's kind of a skill in itself. If you can manipulate your opponents to win a game, for you to win a game, actually, it's worth it. I mean, it's amazing, you know. So props to Vector, and I'll give him an S tier. So we have our final 4 duelists, and I mean, there's no surprise here. Don 1000, triple S tier. I mean, who on earth is able to get 100,000 life points in one duel? I mean, that's just amazing. And he was scary as well. He was frightening. He was basically like Madara Uchiha, but in this case for Yu-Gi-Oh! He was hyped up since the very beginning because he was controlling Dr. Faker, and he even influenced the Emperors as well. Vector was scared of Don 1000, so in that case, Don 1000 was pretty much just hyped up so much, and it paid off. He was one of the strongest villains out there for Yu-Gi-Oh! Triple S tier might not even be enough. But with that being said, we're also going to move on to the rest of them. With Astral, I'm going to give him a double S tier. In the final duel, well, Astral started off as very strong. He definitely carried Yuma for a majority of their duels, but by the time we got to the final season, Yuma was already working on his own. So when they actually had that final ceremonial duel, Yuma did actually beat Astral, and in that particular circumstance, it only makes sense that Yuma has truly surpassed Astral in that case, and I genuinely believe so as well. So Astral gets a double S tier, and I think that's actually quite fair, you know, that's quite a fair position to put. Astral, using all the numbers, is still definitely very strong, so I think that Astral could still take on Mihail and Dr. Faker and Kaito at the level he was at the end of the series. I do genuinely believe that. And then at the very top, I'm also going to put Yuma and Yuma and Shark, sorry, both in triple S tier as well. I think they both really attained a level like no other. Shark will still always have his Baryon Emperor ability, which just makes him pretty much at a deity level. And Yuma unlocked Zexal, so it puts him at the very top as well. Now, the reason why I'm putting Don 1000 as the very epitome here is because it took Yuma and Shark to actually beat Don 1000. And I also put Yuma above Shark because in their final duel, Yuma did actually beat Shark. It was quite crazy, to be honest. There was so much actually happening. Firstly, you had Yuma and Shark versus Don 1000. They finally beat Don... Wait, let me actually just do this. It's so crazy. The final few episodes of Zexal was crazy because you had Shark versus... No, let me even backtrack even further. Oh my goodness, this is crazy. You had Vector going up against Rio and Derbe, and then Vector beats Rio and Derbe, right? Later on, Shark joins in and he wants to defeat Vector. So Shark fights Vector, Vector loses, and he gets taken away by Don 1000. After that, you have Shark and Yuma finally taking on Don 1000, and then they beat him. After that, you had Yuma versus Shark, where Yuma actually beats Shark. After that, you had Yuma versus Astral as the final ceremonial duel. It was just crazy. There was just so much happening in the final few episodes of Zexal, and yeah, I think this was definitely a really good tier list that I've made. I am pretty happy, so what do you guys actually think? I mean, do you agree with all this? We can see F tier is pretty small. We have E tier, we have D tier, C tier is fine as well, B tier I wouldn't change anything, A tier, S tier, double S tier again also very fine, and a triple S tier as well. I'm pretty satisfied with this list, but what do you guys think? Tell me what you think. Do you guys agree? If you enjoyed this video, definitely drop a like and also share this video as well, but don't forget to subscribe for more videos just like this. I hope you all have a fantastic day. I'll see you all next time.